let's turn now, in the brief time we've got left, to climate change in particular. But we're going to bring in the theme of equity in particular, because I know some of you really have mentioned that that's a very important issue. First, maybe we could just start on sort of a pretty basic question. Ken, I mean, you're running a big city. You've got 1,000 things to worry about. I mean, why should you care as a mayor about climate change?
Well, your career will be over before we have the catastrophic impact of climate change. But I think we've got a moral obligation to our children and our grandchildren to try and solve this problem. And if you look at it, it's relatively easy to create a sustainable city. It creates a lot of work as you make the buildings energy efficient, get a good public transport system, recycle everything. But it's also, I think, about encouraging people just not to waste. One of my most bizarre schemes, which everyone thought was mad, was I encouraged people not to flush the toilet if they'd only had a pee. Because all that water has been purified at great expense. I mean, it's a nitrate solution. I mean, it's not, dangerous, and it would just save a lot of energy. But people just thought, my God, what a disgusting old man.
Thank you for that. But it is a puzzle, isn't it? I mean, we are now seeing leadership from mayors on climate change that is really amazing. I mean, we heard already about what C40 is doing. It's just about to have their 10th anniversary. It's wonderful what they're doing. ICLE is doing. The Compact of Mayors, the Mayor Bloomberg, Mayor Paes, and now it's going to be hundreds of mayors sign up to this. And it's quite ambitious. I mean, the Compact of Mayors says, you will be transparent about measuring your greenhouse gases, you will have a clear plan, and you'll be held accountable to implementing that plan. And that plan really needs to be more ambitious than your nation's plan. Why is it that mayors and cities are becoming more ambitious often than their nations on climate change, Enrique?
Okay. Anyway, I think you can hear me anyway. Okay, good. Again, I say that many solutions to cities' problems require sustainable means. It's not like you are trying to solve sustainability, but you need to solve mobility, and mobility you will only really be able to solve with public transport, with bicycles, if you want quality of life, you need to make the city more walkable. I think there is partly this, but also because people in cities are very, the mayor has to be responsive to their citizens, and citizens are ever more concerned with this very important issue of sustainability. Maybe, although the cities have to be concerned also with economic growth and these issues, maybe national governments are often more concerned with these issues, and they are willing to be less responsible sometimes in environmental issues. While in cities, everything is very interlinked. What the people want, what the solutions require are, and what sustainability is. So it's...
Yeah. Jaime, what do you think?
Well, first of all, it's more effective on working with cities, because sometimes people don't understand what is the commitment from a country to reduce carbon emissions. How is this accountable? So mostly because 75, as you said, 75% of carbon emissions are related to the cities. It's on the cities that we can be more effective. Second, I'm worried about every time when a governor or a president says, we're going to reduce the amount of carbon emissions and so and so, so. Who is going to check this? So that's why, for me, it's very simple. Sustainability is an equation between what we save and what we waste. If we waste zero, sustainability goes to the infinitum. So that means keeping this equation between saving and wasting is very important, and the people can understand that, and they can check, because it's not difficult to measure, for instance, the water supply. It's not difficult to check the waste of energy. So I'm designing now a small watch, I'm dreaming about this, where you can have this equation in water supply and energy. So it's accountable. So that means every citizen can understand how much they are saving in their house, in their neighborhood, or in their city. So more and more, I think it's more effective working with cities. And sometimes there's another issue. It's very hard to have agreements between countries, because every country has a different problem. For instance, India, the energy supply is different than in the US or in other countries. So it's hard to have commitments that they are very politically discussed. But on the other hand, when you are dealing with cities, you have more solidarity. Yeah. There is a kind of solidarity between cities. And I think this could help better. So a global commitment or a commitment between cities on sustainability. It could work better.
That's a very, very interesting point, is that, creating a club where, you share common methodologies, you share experiences, what obviously C40 has been trying to do. Sam, measuring greenhouse gases, until recently every city was measuring it different ways. Now, very good news over the last year, C40, ICLEI, WRI, and now others have agreed a common protocol, which is sort of what happened to greenhouse gases for corporations about 10 years ago, where it was decided, you need a common approach. Now we've agreed a common approach and we have a whole team working on this. As a mayor of Portland, I know that's something you struggle with. How do you measure what you're emitting?
It's a challenge. It's a challenge in a nation that creates a lot of data, and yet getting that data to cities so that they can produce an inventory of their status of greenhouse gas emission remains unnecessarily difficult. WRI is partnering with Bloomberg Foundation to get at the data that exists and to disaggregate it in a way that is much more accessible on a city-by-city basis. There are 12,481 cities in the United States, according to Wikipedia. Wikipedia's always right. less than 150 have actually published their greenhouse gas emissions. It's hard to show real progress. It is hard to prioritize what you need to work on first, second, and third as a mayor or city councilor if you don't have that basic data. So it's critically important. I would add, though, that that's just a piece of it, and what you said and what Jaime said in terms of that networking among cities and among mayors is also critically important. The Compact of Mayors is a great new opportunity for cities to share best practices, be inspired, not repeat the same mistakes that have been made before, not reinvent the wheel in terms of figuring out what to do next. All very important, that basis of fact as well. I'd like to just quickly add to the good answers on why cities, if I could. And my answer is, for a lot of cities, it is in their economic interest to lead themselves to greater sustainability. In Portland, we don't have we don't have oil wells. We build trucks and trains and a whole lot of things, but we don't build cars. And we're not the headquarters for car insurance companies. So a big part of every dollar spent on the car leaves the city. And the more that people drive less, the less they spend on cars, the more families in Portland get to keep that money in their pocket, becoming more economically secure, and doing it in a way that also happens to improve their health, reduce pollution, reduce gridlock, improve quality of life. So for many cities, for most cities, I would say, there is a very strong, compelling economic reason to really push hard on climate action, on sustainability.
Thank you very much. Mary, let me go to Mary Jane first, then come back to you. Mary Jane, Philippines has recently actually evolved or changed its position in negotiations, in part because Philippines are so badly hit by typhoons. And it's the cities, I guess Tacloban and other cities. I mean, it's the cities that have suffered just billions and billions of dollars. So would you say that in the cities in Philippines there would be a sort of real willingness now to engage in this issue? Or do they want to be part of this?
We have been engaged in climate change actions since 1998 when I was mayor. And that's the reason why we went into solid waste management. In fact, I formed the Solid Waste Management Association of the Philippines. And also, we came up with other ideas like, for example, seeing to it that you talked about the flushing of toilets. Well, we introduced the dry sanitation, the EcoSan toilets, so that one of the things that we always would say is, you would find this probably shocking. Well, they said when we were created, we had 2 plumbings. The women have 3. Men, you have separate plumbing for urine and a separate plumbing for solids. With women, we have a 3rd for children. Now they say, why was it separated? And then we go inside a small room and we put them together to produce wastewater. And so they Netherlands came up with this idea of dry sanitation. And I took that idea and used it in one of our communities when I transferred about 87 fisher folks who were always victims of typhoons, who would always be relocated and would spend a lot relocating them and evacuating. So what we did was build a house, but with this type of a sanitation where you harvest the urine, because urine is 94% urea. And then we tell them, don't use it on plants concentrated. You have to dilute it 50-50. And so if you go to that community, they have beautiful flowering plants. And for the solids, we use lime or rice hull, because we have a lot of rice hull to cover it, and there is no smell. And one good thing is we do not produce wastewater. So those are some of the initiatives that we've done. And as I said, this is also because of the needs that we have seen.
Wow, thank you very much. Enrique, you were going to...
No, I'd just like to say that, as Sam says, it's different worlds. For us to have London's income per capita or Portland's, it will take us maybe 150 years growing at very good rates. In 100 years, if we do very well, we'll have London or Portland's income per capita today. So we are in a different planet. We have to consider that there are huge needs. We have more than 500,000 people, maybe near 1 million, who don't have payment. 90% of the children in public schools go only half the day because there are not enough schools, only some in the morning, some in the afternoon. So, for example, we talk about electric, by the way, Bogotá is very sustainable because the temperature is ideal. I mean, cities all over the planet pay billions of dollars in energy for heating or cooling to get the temperature Bogotá has all year round for free. But, for example, if we're going to use electric transport, as long as it's cost-effective compared to some diesel, because at this time we are so poor, we have to be extremely careful. We have to do, for example, we have to clean the rivers, but first the river that goes through, the dirty creeks that go through the neighborhoods. We have to worry about the air pollution as it affects people, the breathing. But criteria first is people, poverty, health, education, mobility at a low cost, because if mobility is just a little more expensive, many people just have to walk for miles and miles. So, for example, bicycles, again, I come again to say, here we have to have the lowest possible form of public transport, not the one that it will win international environmental prizes. And a bicycle, a person who uses a bicycle can save up to 1.5 months of a minimum wage. So for us, this may be more important than the environmental impact. So at this time, what I have to say is that what is amazing and happily is there is no conflict. Most of the policies we do to make the poorer people better off are also equity and sustainable policies, sustainability policies. But we have to be very careful because first, we have to take care of the low-income people, and there is huge poverty problems. And so that's first.
Thanks very much. I think you've really put your finger on it, well, you all have, that it turns out that things that are good for citizens and good for efficiency will be generally, if you're smart about it, good for climate change. If you go to the C40 review, which they do every 2 years, you know, there's a list of, I think, 4,000 measures that have been taken by their members. And many of those measures were not taken to help climate change primarily. They were introducing bike lanes or making the city more compact, or they were, you know, better insulation, again, to save money, a whole range of waste issues and so on. Add them all together, and it really starts making a difference on climate change. And one of the ways of looking at this is to think of carbon as actually a very good indicator of economic inefficiency. If you're a city and you are putting out a lot of carbon per unit of economic output, you can be pretty sure you're running the city inefficiently. In other words, people probably travel a long way to work. They probably spend a lot of time sitting in traffic. You probably don't have very good insulation, and so on and so on. And so the mayor of Houston, Mayor Anise Parker, who's a very strong mayor, she's come up very much with this kind of thing. She says, look, Houston, quite frankly, it's not that easy to get my citizens so excited about climate change. We're one of the great oil cities in the world. But, she says, I know that I need to learn from the kind of things that, for example, Latin America's doing. She's now introducing bus rapid transit. She's realizing actually that a lot of young people, she was saying, don't actually want to settle downtown in a soulless downtown. The old idea that you live out in the suburbs, young people today actually don't want to do that. So she's now subsidizing the infilling of the city. You know, exactly this kind of new urbanism we're talking about, compact, connected, coordinated, not necessarily motivated for climate change, but my goodness me, making a fantastic contribution. Just one final thing, I would recommend you all look up the op-ed piece that, I guess it was Mayor Bloomberg, Anise Parker, and Mayor Paes did a couple of days ago, which talks about climate change and why mayors should really be leaders in this. Very, very exciting.